Hello and welcome to Stretford Paddock. This is the preview for Manchester United versus Spurs. I'm joined by Scotty. How are you doing?
Trying to be optimistic.
Right,
is how
we're going to be optimistic then.
Optimistic.
We're going to be very optimistic. It wasn't a great performance against Wolves, but now it's maybe a nice team to play against because they're a big team. I say this all the time with Tottenham. They're a big team, so you have to try hard, but they are quite beatable, aren't they? Although it remains to be seen under Ange Postecoglou whether they are still that beatable Tottenham we all know and love. But let's first start, and I know you're trying to be optimistic, with a little bit of concern.
Okay.
Because we can't look ahead without looking back a little bit. And Manchester United were about as unconvincing as you can be while still winning a game against Wolves, weren't they?
Yeah.
What concerns arose in that game?
There was a lot. Fitness being a major one. They're just absolutely knackered, especially compared to Wolves. And we were speaking on the watch along whether that was down to the fatigue from travelling through the States, going back and forth a lot of time, a lot of games. But after the match, I was thinking, well, City did a lot, went over to Japan. Yeah. You know, it's an easy one to fall back on. My main concern was the sort of style of play. I didn't understand how it was supposed to set up. That triangle of Casemiro, Mount and Bruno, I just don't understand what that is. Garnacho was disappointing down the left. And I'm not saying he's a one-trick pony, but he's become as predictable as Anthony is on the right. So when you're losing them to your two channels, Rashford is not an out-and-out number 9 striker. You know, so there's a lot going forward. And there's a little bit of doubt that's creeping into me regarding Ten Hag's style of play with these players. He was known for high pressing, possession style football, and that's what I want to see against Tottenham because it doesn't seem to be as evident as I'd like it to be. Yeah,
we saw the high pressing, I thought. United won the ball back quite a lot.
In the first 10-15 minutes, that's what Anthony was great at, I thought, in the first.
But we didn't really see the possession, and maybe he's not trying to do that. Maybe, you know, he's looking at different things to what he did at Ajax, but you can't be controlled by Wolves, regardless of whether he's trying to tweak things or not. You know, that performance against Wolves was terrible, and like you said, they looked tired. They looked like, and obviously I assume this didn't happen, I would be stunned if it did, but it looked like they'd been doing fitness work in the morning and then they were playing a training game in the evening. They're all a bit sluggish, they're all a bit
leggy, wasn't it?
Everyone was legging, and people talk about Casemiro, and I think because he's 31, 32, people can say, oh, his legs have gone. But it looked like Luke Shaw's legs had gone, and it looked like Garnacho's legs had gone, and Mount and Bruno and Martinez and almost even Wan-Bissaka, like, it looked like everyone's legs had gone. So maybe Casemiro's a different example, but it doesn't explain why the entire team looked like Wolves were just 1-2-ing around them. And whenever there was a 50-50, the Wolves player was sprinting and elbowing our players out of the way, and we were just sort of jogging along next to him. It was bizarre how slow and lethargic United looked, wasn't it? It don't really make sense to me.
No, it's like United were playing football in treacle. Just the sort of speed of them. And if we give them a pass or so a little bit off them with the fitness maybe, the intent wasn't there, and that's the frustrating thing. Even if your fitness is down, and this is why Casemiro is coming for a lot of stick, is because, you know, he's a leader, he's a battler, he's been there, he's won everything. You expect him to have that sort of game face on where, okay, I'm trying here. But it didn't seem that I didn't get that from any of the players' sort of personality on the pitch or behaviour.
I'm trying to be with a positive spin in my head. The thing that would explain it to me is maybe a mixture of the time travel across multiple different time zones, back and forth, New York to San Diego to Houston, back to San Diego to Vegas to Dublin. Like, maybe some of these players are just still slightly jet lagged, but the other thing maybe is, and hopefully, if we, like I say, trying to put a positive spin on it, hopefully they've trained them so hard over the summer that they're still slightly knackered from the pre-season work. And actually, over the next couple of weeks, the legs will settle, and actually that will turn into fitness for the season. Maybe they're still in kind of pre-season mode where they've just been ran ragged for 3 weeks to get that fitness in their legs, and maybe we can expect a slow start, but less of a drop-off in the end of the season. That's my sort of optimistic brain trying to what fits into these, what puzzle pieces fit into this gap that we've seen that could mean a good thing is coming from it, and that's the only one I can think of really.
And I think with it being the first game of the season as well, and because we've been so productive in the transfer window, I think that more than ever expectations were a lot higher. We were going in against a Wolves team that we believed before kickoff we're going to be, you know, on their last legs as a new manager that had 3 days in there. We were expecting Wolves to sort of lie down and United to go all out for it. So there's that level of disappointment. If that result happens in November, on a Monday night in November after a few games, we sort of write it off and go like, it's a bad performance, but 3 points, and it's a little bit easier.
Yeah.
But because it's you take the first game of the season as being your, again, intent for the season, setting your stall out for the season. So you may look back and say, right, this was a terrible performance, but at the end of the day, we did get the 3 points. But it's hard not to look at the certain things like the fitness and the patterns of play and wonder, there's a lot to be improved on against Spurs.
Yeah, and you've not got any other reference points.
No.
It is the only game of the season, so the only conclusions we can draw are from this. Another point specifically, you did mention it before, but that midfield was just completely ran through, wasn't it? And, I think unfairly, and TalkSport doing their thing of all the stats that Mason Mount had a 0 in and all that. But Mason Mount was quite... He just wasn't really in the game at all, was he? He couldn't get himself in the game. Defensively, he was non-existent. Going forward, he didn't really offer a lot either. Bruno didn't have a great game, but as Bruno tends to do, he popped up with that phenomenal pass into Wan-Bissaka, which led to the goal. But he didn't have a great game either. And Casemiro looked really slow and really leggy. But then, I just want to bring this up. This is a heat map of the players' average positions in the game from who scored. And you can see there, number 18 in the middle, Casemiro, and in front of him, 7 and 8, that's Bruno and Mount, who basically, over the course of the game, played in the same position as each other. I think they've sort of alternated what they were doing. But you see the gap there. The gap between Mount and Bruno is closer, or the gap is bigger between them and Casemiro than it is from them and the strikers.
Yeah.
So he's not getting that cover from them. They're there trying to support Rashford, and they aren't really supporting Casemiro. Do you think maybe we could see even just an instructional tweak from Ten Hag who goes, right, Mount, I see what you're trying to do there, but you need to drop deeper, or Bruno, you need to come deeper. Do you think this could be fixed a bit more easier than, or a bit more quickly than we're sort of worried that it might, pan out to be?
Yeah, well, you'd hope so, really. And, he spent like 50 plus million on Mason Mount. I imagine Ten Hag got an idea of how he wants to play him. Mason Mount, I've gone with United, weren't massively impressive in the pre-season tour, but you'd hope that was a time where he was going to work out, how the structure is going to be. But I thought Mason Mount looked like the sort of, when the new lad used to join to school and watch the game of football, but he didn't know anybody else who played on the pitch. Yeah. He just run around a lot trying to look busy.
So no one passed to him. He wasn't stood in the right areas. Yeah.
And I think that's what he did, because there was a lot of TikTok clips going round about and saying, look at Mason Mount, he's running here, but there was no directive in what your position of plays. And when you've got one player doing that, it sort of throws everybody else out of sync. So I think it might have been even, and there were talks about a bang out of order for the way they were sort of labouring all the performance at his feet, but just have a bit more discipline in what your role's supposed to be, and that's Ten Hag's job. It really is to sort of try and do that. I wouldn't mind Bruno playing deeper alongside Casemiro, because we've seen it last year for about 3 or 4 games where he was playing that deeper role, and his passing was phenomenal out to the wings, and I think we got better out of Anthony from that distribution from far, and if that helps Casemiro out, and I think Mount would like to move forward a bit more, but I mean it didn't work, and I think that's why they've ruined his Amrabat in the window. Yeah,
definitely. With all that being said, then let's move on to our predicted 11s. I'll start with you. What are you saying for your predicted 11 here?
I think, as it stands with injuries, I've gone for exactly the same team from the last game, but I think that Sancho will replace Garnacho on the left. Yeah. I think Garnacho, with his age and what he offers to a team, he's better coming off the bench where he is now in his career. Do you know what I mean? I think it can hurt their defence with his pace and stuff, so I think he might come on later onto the game. I thought Sancho was one of our brightest lights during the pre-season. Looks a lot better player. I'd like to see him out on the right, but I just Ten Hag and the Anthony thing, I don't think that's a bond that anybody anyone can break. I'm not too sure how fruitful or productive it'll be over the course of a season. But I think that's our strongest 11 going into the game until Højlund is fit.
Yeah, and I think, to be fair, I could see Sancho starting. I've gone with an unchanged team, almost from that old school perspective of like, go and do better than you did last time. Make a few tweaks, obviously. It's not just play better, but talk to Mount, talk to Garnacho about his distribution, and yes, we want you to drive at players, we want you to go past people, but you have to know when and where to do it. If it's a 2-on-1, knocking it and running is probably going to, lose you the ball. I think a few conversations with certain players, a few tweaks, and then just say, right, that was shit, do better next time. I'd send the same team out again. And maybe that's slightly unfair on Sancho, and if he started, I would be happy with that as well, because I thought he did look quite sharp when he came on. But yeah, just that old school of like, you lot are better than that.
Yeah.
Go and do better. I'd just play the same team again because really, again, other than maybe Sancho, there's no obvious massive upgrades on the bench, is there?
No.
Højlund still isn't fit. Martial, he might be fit, but he's not played and he's not. I wouldn't think he's ready to start. So yeah, I'd just send the same team out again.
Yeah, my fears for the season aren't so much Wolves terrorised us at the back. I mean, and they may have had a penalty and had a couple of close chances, but I think at the back solid we're quite solid, and I think would like Casemiro to get support. But the fear is scoring goals. Yeah. I just don't see what is it? Are we a team that plays with wingers? Because Anthony can't cross it in. If you're playing Garnacho, it's head down, bombing it forward.
Yeah.
I'd like Sancho and Garnacho, if you could blend them into one player, it would be superb. Because Sancho's heads up all the time and Garnacho's heads down all the time. But I just don't. Højlund's got a lot of pressure on his shoulders. I think it's really unfair for a 20-year-old lad.
Yeah, I think the one good thing about Højlund coming in as well is you get Rashford back on the left.
Yeah.
So I know he's not a head up and cross it type of winger either, but he can do a bit more of everything. He's a bit more well-rounded.
He enjoys it so much more.
Garnacho and Sancho. Well. Yeah, he's just better there. So you get Rashford back and you get a striker. Hopefully that will help alleviate some of the pressure when you've got two people getting in the goals. Let's move on to Spurs then. Like I said before, and I said this last season, and I think United beat them. I think it was the 2-0. They're almost the perfect team to play in this sort of situation. Because even though United won and Spurs drew, it wasn't a positive game from United. We didn't leave that match thinking, oh, great, the season's back, United are good. But Spurs, they can't be underestimated. They're a new team with a new manager. We have to go in there 100%. But they are beatable. Especially, they've signed a few players. I'll get into them in a second. But losing Harry Kane in particular, it takes away their biggest threat. Their best player has left. They've signed Maddison, Porro, Van der Ven, Vicario, Veliz, Kulusevski on a permanent, which is already there, so that doesn't really count. But they've signed some players, but none of those players are even in the stratosphere of Harry Kane. None of them are even guaranteed to start. I think Maddison probably will because of injuries to Bentancur and certain other things. But, they've not got loads better, have they, Tottenham? They've just got this new manager who seems like a decent bloke, but how good is he at managing?
I think the thing with the new manager is stabilising the club really, and I think once now they've sorted that Harry Kane saga out and he has left, I always wonder if that means that other players are going to pick up the baton. I think is Richarlison fit now?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean he probably the major goal threat for Spurs. But yeah, I mean Spurs are always a great team to play because it's all because it's Spurs, and I think any club that faces them would always fancy their chance of 3 points. Again, I don't
except City.
Except City, thankfully. Yeah, it's a strange one, that isn't it? But I think Maddison had a great game against Brentford, and I think he's a really good signing for them. I don't think obviously they're going to have much goal threat with Harry Kane not being there, so I don't fear for us conceding. Again, it's for scoring goals. Brentford got 2 against them. I think Brentford were unlucky for the win as well.
Yeah, the thing with United, and I said this last season, and unfortunately, until either Martial and or Højlund become fit and regularly available, it doesn't even matter how dangerous an opposition is. If you don't score for 70 minutes, you can lose. Yeah. Like, United could be playing Altrincham or Yeovil or Gillett, like a team lower league. If you don't score, they only have to have one bit of luck, one corner, one fluke, one deflected anything, and you've lost. And we allow pressure to build and build and build by not scoring. People act like, oh, well, your defence is one thing and your attack is a completely separate thing. They're the same thing. If you aren't scoring, your defence will just by default be under pressure because the opposition goes, well, they haven't scored. We might as well have a go here. We can win this. So, and the defence knows that. Everyone gets nervous. Everyone gets edgy and cagey. And we've seen it so many times over the last few years. When we aren't scoring, the opposition, they look dangerous today, didn't they? If you're 2-0 up, Wolves stop being dangerous.
Yes.
It is that simple. Exactly. Score 2 goals in the first 40 minutes, you will almost certainly win the game. Yeah. And that's what Arsenal did so well last season, and obviously City do it, and United did it in the past. Teams that were meant to be good, they didn't look great today, did they? Of course they didn't. They were 2-0 down after 30 minutes, and it didn't matter. Even if they were great, they're not going to come back from that. So the longer we go without scoring, the better everyone else looks. And that's like you said, my biggest concern is the same as yours. We don't score, and they just inevitably have a few chances, and United get pegged back and we lose confidence. And then one thing
there were so many examples of that last season. Yeah. I mean, I thought Everton game where we had that so many shots record, whatever it's in Premier League. I mean, went on to win, but that could have easily gone. Just waiting for a freak instance. Wolves the other night. if we'd have got beat 3-0, I would have gone like, I probably deserved that.
Do you know the perfect game for me that sums that up, because it was a lower league team as well, when we lost to Middlesbrough in the Cup? We had so many chances in that game. Yeah. We had literally, I think, an XG of like 5 or 4 or like something really high. And just because we didn't score, they had a handball that should have been given. It wasn't. Was it a penalty they ended up getting and they scored? We would have won that game if we'd have scored 1 goal. They never would have scored that goal. Because you miss every chance, you can lose to teams in the Championship or whatever, let alone Premier League teams. So United have to score. Let's get into score predictions. But before that, send in your score predictions to paddockmatchday@gmail.com. You know the drill by now. Jay tells you all the time. Get your phone landscape, film yourself, 30 seconds. I think the score is going to be this. I'm looking forward to the game. I think here's going to be the goal scorers. Send it in to paddockmatchday@gmail.com and you will be featured on the watch along on Saturday. Scotty, give me a score prediction.
I think it's going to be a really tight 1-0 to Manchester United.
Similar to the Wolves game?
I think so, yeah. I think it'll be a really difficult game. I don't think it'll be an easy watch. I just don't think Spurs will have the firepower to score, and I'm hoping, I'm trying to be that optimistic guy that might pop up and get a 1-0, which I'd take.
Yeah, me too. I'd take anything. I think we're probably better than them. And if United play properly, and if we get an early goal, again, that's the crucial thing. I'm going to go 2-1 United. I think they will score. But I think United should just have enough sort of strength and composure to pull through either way. But I could, if they play like they did the other night, it could be any score, couldn't it?
If you're Mason Mount, Joe, how does the reaction from Wolves? How do you take that on? What's your sort of like, right? I'll show you, lot.
Yeah, I think so. But he's got to make sure that he doesn't let that mean that he's just sort of reactive and trying to force things.
Yeah.
Do what the manager says. Play with a bit more structure. Cover your men better. Watch your runners better, and you'll be successful. But yeah, hopefully it spurs him on rather than no pun intended. Rather than
nicely done.
Making him shy away. That's going to be all from us. Thank you for coming on, Scotty.
No,
thank you for watching at home. Get your score predictions in the comments below as well, and hit subscribe if you haven't already. This has been the preview for Manchester United versus Spurs. We'll see you in a bit.